His mother had won. Simbi was leaving Korea. Her career in ruins, her heart shattered, 43 unanswered texts burning in her phone like accusations. But as the plane pulled away from the gate, Director Han was making a choice that would cost him everything: his company, his family, his reputation. He'd sent one email that morning, just 4 words to the board that would change his life forever. Now he was on the same flight, 5 rows ahead in first class, and in 14 hours when they landed in Lagos, he'd have to prove to her family, her friends, and the woman who'd given up on him that he was finally the man worth fighting for. But his mother wasn't done. And what she was planning back in Seoul would test whether their love could survive not just distance, but betrayal so deep it would make everything before look like practice. Welcome to the grand finale of Director Han and Simbi's story. Strap in, because this is going to be a very long ride, filled with intense moments. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you are watching from in the comments. We love to hear from you. The phone kept ringing, Director Han's name flashing on the screen like a question Simbi wasn't ready to answer. Her thumb hovered over the green button, then pulled back, hovered again, pulled back. The final boarding announcement echoed through Incheon Airport's terminal, sharp and urgent in 3 languages. Passengers for Flight 285 to Lagos. This is your final boarding call. The gate will close in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 120 seconds to decide if she was brave enough to answer or smart enough to walk away. The ringing stopped. Simbi exhaled. Something between relief and devastation washing over her. The decision had been made. She picked up her carry-on, turned toward the gate, and took 1 step, then another. Her gate pass scanned. The agent smiled politely. "Welcome aboard, Miss Simbi." She walked down the jet bridge, her heels clicking against the floor, each step taking her further from the man who'd asked her to leave. From the career she'd fought so hard to build, from the dream she'd chased across continents. The flight attendant greeted her warmly. "Seat no A, right this way." Simbi found her window seat, buckled in, and stared out at the Seoul skyline, the city that had promised her everything, the city that had given her everything, then asked her to prove she deserved it. The city she was now leaving behind. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Director Han. She didn't open it. Couldn't. If she read his words now, she might break. And she'd done enough breaking. The flight attendants began their safety demonstration. Simbi closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. This was the right choice. She needed space and distance, time to remember who she was before him, before Hanjin Corporation, before she'd fallen in love with a man who couldn't fight for her when it mattered most. The planes. Engines hummed to life, and then she heard it. A commotion near the front of the aircraft, raised voices, someone arguing with the flight attendants in urgent Korean. "Sir, you can't just board without—" "I have a ticket, first class, same flight." "Sir, the door is closed. We're preparing for takeoff." "Then open it again." "Please, there's someone on this plane I need to see." Simbi's eyes snapped open. That voice. She knew that voice. She unbuckled her seatbelt, standing up to see over the rows of seats in front of her, and there, in the aisle near the cockpit door, stood Director Han, still in his suit from work, breathing hard like he'd been running, his eyes scanning the economy cabin desperately. Their gazes locked. The entire plane had gone silent, everyone watching this man, who looked like he'd just run through an airport terminal with the singular purpose of stopping someone from leaving. "Simbi," he said, his voice raw. "Please, just 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." "Sir?" The flight attendant tried again, but the pilot had emerged from the cockpit now, assessing the situation. "What's going on here?" the pilot asked in accented English. Director Han pulled out his phone, showing something to the pilot that Simbi couldn't see. Whatever it was made the pilot's eyebrows raise, then nod slowly. 5 minutes, the pilot said, but we have a schedule to keep. Director Han made his way down the aisle, and Simbi's heart hammered against her ribs. Every passenger was staring now, some with curiosity, others with annoyance at the delay, but most with the kind of fascination people have when they're watching a real-life drama unfold. He stopped at her row. Can we talk? Outside? We have nothing to talk about, Simbi said, but her voice betrayed her, shaking slightly. You said everything yesterday. You told me to leave. So I'm leaving. I was wrong. He ran a hand through his hair. That gesture she'd come to know meant he was struggling for words. I was so wrong, Simbi, and I can't let you get on this plane thinking that I don't want you, that I'm not willing to fight for us. But you didn't fight, she said, and now tears were threatening. When your mother gave you an ultimatum, you chose her. When I needed you to stand beside me, you told me to save myself. Because I was terrified. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the audience. Terrified of losing my mother the way I lost my father. Terrified of choosing wrong and regretting it forever. But you want to know what I realized after you left my apartment? She said nothing, just stared at him with those eyes that were trying so hard not to cry. The only choice I'll regret is letting you leave without knowing that I love you. Not the version of you that fits into my world perfectly, not the you that makes things easy. All of you, the stubborn, brilliant, infuriating woman who walked into that boardroom and destroyed my mother's schemes with nothing but facts and courage. He stepped closer. I'm not asking you to forgive me, not yet, but I am asking you to let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. The one who fights, the one who chooses you every single time. The plane was so quiet, you could hear Simbi's sharp intake of breath. So here's what I'm going to do, Director Han continued. I bought a ticket. First class, same flight. I'm going with you to Nigeria. I'm meeting your family. I'm seeing where you came from, understanding who you were before you ever set foot in Korea, and I'm spending however long it takes showing you that I'm serious, that this isn't just words. Simbi's eyes widened. You can't just, you have work, the board meeting, your mother. I sent an email to the board this morning. I'm taking a leave of absence. 2 weeks. Lee Minho is covering for me. And my mother? He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just burned a bridge and was okay with it. She can be angry, she can threaten, but she can't control me anymore, not when it comes to you. A few passengers started clapping, then more joined in. The flight attendant was trying not to smile. Simbi stood up, stepping into the aisle to face him properly. You're really doing this, following me across the world. I'll follow you anywhere, he said simply. You just have to let me. She wanted to say yes. Every part of her wanted to fall into his arms and forgive him, and believe that this time would be different. But she'd been hurt too deeply. She'd fought too hard to protect her heart. She looked at him for a long moment, this man who'd shown up at the airport, who'd bought a ticket on impulse, who was looking at her like she was his entire world. Then she sat back down. Seat 3A is waiting for you, Director Han, she said quietly. We'll talk when we land. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a chance. And as Director Han made his way to first class, as the plane finally pulled away from the gate, as Seoul disappeared beneath the clouds, Simbi touched the jade bracelet on her wrist and wondered if maybe, just maybe, some promises were worth believing in after all. The flight to Lagos was 14 hours. 14 hours where Director Han had to figure out how to win back the trust of a woman who'd given him everything and watched him crumble under pressure. He had no plan, no strategy, no corporate presentation to fall back on. All he had was 2 weeks, one carry-on bag and the desperate hope that love could be enough. But as the plane levelled out at cruising altitude, as the flight attendants began their service, one thought kept circling in his mind. What if I'm already too late? Quick question before they land. Romantic or reckless? Drop your vote in the comments. I'm reading every single one. Now let's see what happens in Lagos. Lagos hit director Han like a wall of heat and noise and colour he'd never experienced. The moment they stepped out of Murtala Muhammad International Airport, the humidity wrapped around him like a thick blanket, and the cacophony of car horns, street vendors, and rapid-fire conversations in languages he didn't understand made Seoul's busy streets seem almost quiet by comparison. Simbi moved through it all like she'd never left, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since he'd known her, a smile playing at her lips as she navigated the chaos with practiced ease. She'd barely spoken to him during the flight. Just a few polite exchanges when he'd tried to bring her water or ask if she needed anything. Now, watching her in her element, he realised how much of herself she'd been compressing to fit into his world. "My brother is picking us up," she said, finally acknowledging him directly. "Fair warning, he's protective. Very protective. I'd expect nothing less," Director Han replied, adjusting his tie nervously. It was the same suit he'd worn to the office yesterday, now wrinkled and inappropriate for the weather, and he felt profoundly out of place. A battered Toyota pulled up, music blaring from the speakers, and a tall man who shared Simbi's eyes jumped out. "Simbi!" His voice boomed as he swept her into a hug that lifted her off her feet. "Mama has been cooking since you called. The whole house smells like heaven." Then his eyes landed on Director Han, and the warmth evaporated instantly. "So, this is him, the man who made my sister cry so hard on the phone that Papa wanted to fly to Korea himself." "Chidi," Simbi warned, but there was affection in her voice. Director Han extended his hand. I know who you are." Chidi didn't take his hand. "Question is, what are you doing in my country?" "Trying to fix the biggest mistake I've ever made," Director Han said honestly, dropping his hand. "Your sister deserves better than how I treated her. I'm here to prove I can be better." Chidi studied him for a long moment, then grabbed Director Han's expensive leather carry-on and tossed it into the trunk with more force than necessary. "We'll see about that. Get in." The drive to Simbi's family home took over an hour through traffic that made Korean rush hour look organised. Director Han sat in the back, while Simbi and Chidi caught up in rapid Igbo, occasionally switching to English when they wanted him to understand something, mostly warnings. "He doesn't know anything about our culture. He's going to embarrass himself. Mama is going to eat him alive." Director Han stayed quiet, watching Lagos unfold through the window, street markets overflowing with colourful fabrics and fresh produce, children playing football in the streets, women balancing impossible loads on their heads while walking with perfect posture. Everything was alive in a way he hadn't expected, vibrant and chaotic and beautiful. They finally pulled up to a modest house in a residential area, and Director Han could see people gathered on the porch, Simbi's family, waiting. "Remember," Chidi said, turning to face Director Han, "these people raised a queen. You better act accordingly." Simbi's mother appeared in the doorway before they'd even gotten out of the car, and suddenly Simbi was running, actually running, into her mother's arms. The woman was smaller than her daughter, but radiated the kind of strength that came from raising children alone after losing a husband too young. Director Han knew that story. Simbi had told him months ago in one of their late-night conversations. Her father had died when she was 12. Her mother had worked 3 jobs to send her and her siblings to good schools. "NAM," her mother said, pulling back to look at Simbi's face. "You've lost weight. And there are shadows under your eyes. This man..." She gestured toward Director Han without looking at him. "He did this?" "Mama," Simbi started, but her mother held up a hand. You, she said, finally turning to Director Han, Korean man who thinks he can break my daughter and then follow her home. Come here. Director Han approached cautiously. He bowed, deep and respectful. Mrs. Okafor, thank you for allowing me into your home. I know I don't deserve... I didn't allow anything. Simbi allowed it. Her mother's eyes, so like her daughter's, bore into him. But since you're here, you will eat, you will rest, and tomorrow we will talk, really talk, and if I don't like what I hear, Chidi will personally put you on the next flight back to Korea. Are we clear? Yes, Mom. Good. She turned back to Simbi, switching to Igbo. Come. Your aunties are inside. They want to hear everything. As Simbi disappeared into the house with her mother and several other women who'd emerged from inside, Director Han was left standing in the yard with Chidi and two other men who introduced themselves as Simbi's uncles. So, one uncle said, lighting a cigarette, "You're rich." Director Han hesitated. "I'm comfortable." "That means rich," Chidi translated. "In Korea, they don't like to admit these things. Being rich doesn't make you worthy," the other uncle added. "Our Simbi, she's special, smart like her mother, stubborn like her father, and proud, so proud. You hurt that pride." "I did," Director Han admitted, "and I'm here to fix it. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes." Chidi laughed. "You hear that, uncles? He says whatever it takes." "Good," the first uncle said, stubbing out his cigarette, "because tomorrow you're coming with us to the market. Let's see how a Korean CEO handles real life." That night, Director Han lay on a thin mattress in Chidi's old room, listening to unfamiliar sounds through the window. Generators humming, distant music, voices calling to each other in languages he didn't speak. He hadn't seen Simbi since they'd arrived. She was sleeping in her old room, surrounded by her mother and aunties, probably telling them everything. His phone had no service. His email wasn't syncing. For the first time in his adult life, he was completely disconnected from his company, his country, his carefully controlled world, and terrifyingly, he had no idea if any of this was working. Through the thin walls, he could hear laughter. Simbi's laughter, that sound he'd fallen in love with. But it wasn't meant for him. It was for her family, her people, the life she'd had before he'd complicated it. Tomorrow, he thought, closing his eyes. Tomorrow I start proving I deserve a second chance, but tomorrow would be harder than anything he'd ever done in a boardroom. Director Han woke to roosters crowing and the smell of something frying. He checked his phone. 5:47 a.m. In Seoul, he'd be getting ready for his morning workout, reviewing the day's schedule, answering emails that had come in overnight. Here, he had nothing but wrinkled clothes and a mission he was increasingly certain was impossible. Chidi knocked once before opening the door. "Get up. We're leaving in 10 minutes. Where are we going?" "I told you. Market. Simbi's mother needs food for dinner tonight. You're helping. Is Simbi coming?" Chidi's smile was not kind. "No. She's staying with Mama." "You think you're going to win her back by following her around like a puppy? You need to show us you're worth her time first." 20 minutes later, Director Han found himself in the back of Chidi's truck with the two uncles, heading toward what Chidi called the biggest market in Lagos. The sun was barely up, and already the heat was oppressive. Director Han had given up on his suit jacket after 5 minutes and rolled up his sleeves. His expensive watch, drawing curious looks from everyone they passed. The market was sensory overload. Thousands of people, hundreds of stalls, everything from live chickens to electronics to fabrics in colours Director Han didn't know existed. The smell of grilled meat mixed with fish and spices and something sweet he couldn't identify. Vendors called out in Yoruba, Igbo and broken English, trying to lure customers. "Okay, Korean man," the first uncle said, pulling out a list. Simbi's mother needs these things. You're going to negotiate. No paying the Oyibo price. The what price? Foreigner price? Chidi translated, clearly enjoying himself. They see your face. They triple the cost. So you better learn fast. For the next 3 hours, Director Han haggled over tomatoes, argued about fish prices, carried bags that seemed to get heavier with each stall, and generally provided entertainment for every vendor in the market. He overpaid for peppers. He almost bought spoiled meat because he couldn't tell the difference. He got lost twice and had to be retrieved by Chidi, who was trying not to laugh. By the time they returned to the house, Director Han was drenched in sweat. His designer shirt was stained with something he hoped was tomato juice, and he'd spent more mental energy than he had in any business. Negotiation. Simbi was sitting on the porch with her mother and aunties shelling beans. She looked up when they arrived, and for a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Amusement? Affection? It was gone before he could identify it. How did he do? Simbi's mother asked. Terribly, Chidi announced cheerfully. Paid 3 times what he should for everything. Got lost. Nearly bought bad fish. The vendors are probably still laughing. But, the second uncle added grudgingly, he didn't complain. Not once. Carried everything without asking for help. Even tried to learn a few words in Igbo. Simbi's mother studied Director Han like he was a particularly interesting specimen. Come here. He approached, very aware that he smelled like fish market and sweat. You're used to people serving you, she said. Yes, ma'am. Here, nobody serves you. You earn respect. You work for what you need. Do you understand? I'm beginning to, he said honestly. Good. She stood, taking the bags from him. Go shower. You smell like Lagos. Tonight, we eat. You sit with the family, and you listen. Maybe you learn something about the woman you claim to love. That evening, crammed around a table filled with jollof rice, fried plantain, grilled chicken, and dishes he couldn't name, Director Han listened to stories. Simbi as a little girl, stubborn and brilliant, reading books under her covers with a flashlight. Simbi at 12, holding her family together after her father died. Simbi at 16, winning a national science competition. Simbi at 20, announcing she was going to Korea, and no one could stop her. She was always different, her mother said, her voice thick with pride. Always dreaming bigger than this place could hold. When she left, I cried for days, but I knew she needed to fly. And then some man tried to clip her wings, an auntie added, looking pointedly at Director Han. I didn't mean to, he said quietly. I was just scared of losing control, of choosing wrong. My father died when I was 19. I had to take over his company. I've spent my whole life making sure I never made a mistake, never showed weakness, never let anyone close enough to hurt me. He looked at Simbi, who was staring at her plate. Until her. What changed? Simbi's mother asked. I realised that the biggest mistake wasn't letting her in. It was pushing her away when things got hard. He set down his fork. Mrs. Okafor, I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't mess up again. But I can promise that I'll fight, that I'll choose her, that I'll spend every day trying to deserve the gift of her love. The table was quiet. Pretty words, Chidi finally said. But Simbi doesn't need pretty words. She needs action. Then tell me what to do, Director Han said. And there was desperation in his voice now. Please, I'll do anything. Simbi stood abruptly. I need air. She walked out to the small garden behind the house, and after a moment, Director Han followed. He found her standing under a mango tree, her arms wrapped around herself. I meant it, he said to her back. Everything I said in there. I know, she replied without turning. That's what scares me. Why? She finally turned to face him, and he could see tears on her cheeks. Because I want to believe you. So badly. But you broke something in me, Director Han. When you told me to leave, When you chose your fear over us, you made me doubt everything. My judgment, my worth, whether I could ever be enough. He moved closer. You are enough. You've always been enough. I'm the one who wasn't. She wiped her eyes. My family likes you. Or they're starting to. Mama never would have let you stay if she didn't see something worth saving. But I need more than your family liking you. I need to know that when we go back to Korea, when your mother applies pressure again, when things get hard again, you won't crumble. So test me, he said, whatever you need, however long it takes. She looked at him for a long moment. My cousin is getting married in 3 days. Big traditional wedding. I'm expected to be there. To bring a guest. I'll go. It's 3 days away. In a village with no hotels. We'd have to stay with extended family, share a room, pretend to be a couple in front of hundreds of people who will judge every move you make. I'll go, he repeated, and I'll prove to everyone there and to you that I'm serious. She studied his face, searching for any hesitation. When she found none, she nodded slowly. Okay, but Director Han, one more mistake, one more moment where you choose fear over me, and we're done. Forever. Do you understand? I understand. She walked past him, back toward the house. 3 days. Don't make me regret this. As he watched her go, Director Han realized he'd just been given something precious and terrifying. One last chance. 3 days to prove himself in a world where he had no power, no control, no advantages. 3 days to win back the woman who'd become his entire world, and he had absolutely no idea how he was going to do it. The village was 3 hours from Lagos, down roads that got progressively worse until Director Han wasn't sure they were roads at all. They travelled in a convoy of cars, Simbi's extended family filling 5 vehicles with bags of gifts, coolers of food, and enough luggage for a month, even though they were only staying 3 days. Director Han rode with Chidi again, while Simbi travelled with her mother and aunties. He'd tried to sit with her, but her mother had given him a look that clearly said not yet, and he'd backed off. You've never been to a traditional Igbo wedding, have you? Chidi asked as they bounced over another pothole. No. Then you're in for an experience, Chidi grinned. Tomorrow is the wine-carrying ceremony. Very important. The bride has to find her husband in a crowd while carrying a cup of palm wine. Very symbolic. What does the groom do? Waits, hopes she finds him. Hopes her family approves. Chidi glanced at him. Sound familiar? Director Han said nothing. They arrived at the family compound as the sun was setting, and Director Han was immediately overwhelmed by the number of people. Aunties, uncles, cousins, neighbours, children running everywhere. The compound was a collection of small houses around a central courtyard where preparations were already underway for tomorrow's celebration. You, Simbi's mother called to Director Han, you're staying in the men's quarters with Chidi and the uncles. Simbi stays with the women. Of course, Director Han said, ignoring Chidi's smirk. That night, while the women prepared for the wedding, Director Han sat with the men around a fire, drinking palm wine that was stronger than anything he'd ever tasted in Korea. The uncles interrogated him good-naturedly, asking about Korea, about his work, about his intentions with Simbi. But one older man, someone Simbi had introduced as Papa Ike, her grandfather's best friend, was quieter. He just watched Director Han with ancient, knowing eyes. Finally, when the others had moved on to telling stories and laughing, Papa Ike spoke. You remind me of someone. Who? Simbi's father. He too was afraid of not being enough. He worked 3 jobs to give his family everything, and it killed him. Worked himself to death by 45. Papa Ike took a long drink. Love isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. You understand the difference. I'm trying to. Good. Because that girl, she doesn't need perfect. She needs real. Show her real. The next day, the wedding festivities began at dawn. The compound transformed into an explosion of colour. Women in elaborate gowns made of traditional fabrics, men in embroidered shirts, music from massive speakers, the smell of jollof rice and goat meat and fried plantains filling the air. Director Han had been given traditional attire to wear, a flowing outfit that felt foreign but comfortable in the heat. Simbi saw him, and her eyes widened slightly before she looked away, but not before he caught the hint of appreciation on her face. The ceremony was beautiful and overwhelming, the wine carrying, where the bride danced through the crowd with a cup, teasing her husband before finally presenting it to him. The breaking of kola nut, the prayers in Igbo. Everything was so different from Korean weddings, which were formal and brief. This was celebration and community and joy that lasted for hours. At one point, they pulled Simbi up to dance, and Director Han watched as she moved to the music with her cousins, her whole body loose and free in a way he'd never seen in Korea. This was who she was when she didn't have to be anything else, when she didn't have to prove anything, when she was just Simbi, daughter of her people, home. Later, as the sun began to set and the party continued, Simbi found him sitting alone under a tree watching the celebration from a distance. "Why aren't you dancing?" she asked. "I don't know how." She sat beside him, close but not touching. "You could learn. I could mess it up." She laughed softly. "You're terrified of looking foolish, even here, thousands of miles from anyone who knows you as Director Han. You're afraid of not being in control." He turned to look at her. "You're right. My whole life has been about control, about being perfect, about never showing weakness. But you know what I realised watching you today?" "What?" "I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be the man who's so afraid of making mistakes that he pushes away the best thing that ever happened to him." He stood, extending his hand. "Teach me." "What?" "To dance, to let go, to be the kind of man who doesn't care about looking foolish if it means making you smile." She stared at his hand like it was a trap. "Director Han, my name is Jinwoo. Use it. Please, I'm not your boss here. I'm not Director Han. I'm just a man who loves you and is begging you to give him another chance." Slowly she took his hand. They walked back to where people were dancing, and for the next hour, Director Han made an absolute fool of himself. He had no rhythm. He couldn't follow the music. He stepped on her toes twice. But he laughed, really laughed, in a way his assistant Lee Min-ho would have found shocking. And Simbi laughed with him, her defences lowering inch by inch. That night, after the celebration wound down, after people had retreated to various houses to sleep off the palm wine and exhaustion, Director Han found Simbi sitting on the porch of the women's quarters, looking up at stars that seemed impossibly bright compared to Seoul's light pollution. "Can I sit?" he asked. She nodded. They sat in silence for a while, listening to night sounds, crickets, distant music, someone's baby crying. "I understand now," he said finally. "Why you fought so hard to stay in Korea? Why it hurt so much when I told you to leave? Because this," he gestured to the compound, the village, the stars. "This is everything. This is home and family and where you come from. And you were willing to leave all of it for a dream, for a chance at something bigger. And I almost made you feel like that choice was wrong. You did make me feel that way," she said quietly. "You made me feel like I had to choose between my dream and being loved, like I couldn't have both. You can have both. You deserve both." He turned to face her. "Simbi, I can't take back what I said. I can't undo the hurt, but I can promise you that if you give me another chance, I will spend every day making sure you know that you never have to choose, that you can have your career and your love and your family and your dreams, all of it. Pretty words again, she whispered, but her voice was softer now. Then, let me prove it with action. He pulled out his phone. Despite having no service, he'd prepared something. He showed her a video he'd recorded that morning while she was getting ready for the wedding. In the video, he spoke in Korean, then English. My name is Han Jin-woo. For the past 10 years, I've been Director Han, CEO of Hanjin Corporation. I've made a lot of good business decisions, but I've also made terrible personal ones. The worst was telling the woman I love that she should leave, that she should give up what we had because it was too hard. He paused in the video. Simbi Okafor, if you're watching this, I want you to know something. When we get back to Korea, I'm holding a press conference. I'm telling the entire country about us, about how I failed you, about how my mother's prejudice nearly destroyed the best thing in my life, and I'm making it clear that anyone who has a problem with our relationship can take it up with me, because I'm done hiding, I'm done being afraid, I'm done choosing anything over you. The video ended. Simbi stared at the phone, then at him. You can't do that. Your reputation, your mother, the company, we'll all have to deal with it. He took her hand. I'm not asking for your forgiveness yet. I know I haven't earned it. But I'm asking you to believe that I mean what I say, that when we go back, everything will be different, because I will be different. She looked down at their joined hands, and he could see the war happening on her face, the part of her that wanted to trust him fighting with the part that was terrified of being hurt again. 5 more days, she said finally. We go back to Korea in 5 days. If you can make it through the rest of this visit, if you can show my family and me that you really understand what you're asking for, then when we get back, we'll try again, slowly, with rules, anything. But Jinwoo? She used his name, and hearing it from her lips made his chest tight. If you ever make me feel like I have to choose between loving you and being myself again, I'm gone and I won't come back. Are we clear? Crystal clear. She stood, and for a moment he thought she might leave. Instead, she leaned down and kissed his forehead, a gentle gesture, not quite forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of it. Good night, Jinwoo. Good night, Simbi. As she disappeared into the women's quarters, as he sat alone under those impossibly bright stars, Director Han, Jinwoo, made himself a promise. He would earn this. He would prove himself, and he would never, ever let fear make his decisions again. 5 more days, and then they'd return to Korea, where the real battle was waiting. The flight back to Seoul felt different from the one leaving it. Simbi sat beside him this time, not in economy, while he was in first class, but next to him in seats he'd upgraded for both of them. They talked during the 14 hours, not about the future, not yet, but about small things, her family, his memories of his father, the foods they missed, the dreams they'd had as children before life got complicated. When they landed at Incheon, Simbi squeezed his hand. Are you ready for this? No, he admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. The press conference was scheduled for the next day. Lee Min-ho had arranged everything, though he'd sent several texts asking if Director Han was absolutely sure about this. Every text. Jinwoo had responded the same way. I've never been more sure of anything. That evening, he went to see his mother. She lived in a penthouse in Gangnam, a space decorated with the kind of cold elegance that looked beautiful but felt empty. She was waiting for him when he arrived, seated in her living room like a queen prepared for battle. So, she said without preamble, you went to Africa, chasing after that girl. Her name is Simbi. And yes, I did. And did it fix anything? Or did you just make a fool of yourself? Jinwoo sat down across from her, maintaining eye contact. I learned something, Mother. I learned what real family looks like. Simbi's mother, she lost her husband when her children were young, worked 3 jobs to give them education, never complained, never gave up. And you know what else she did? His mother said nothing, her jaw tight. She welcomed me into her home, fed me, let me earn her trust, treated me with more grace than I deserved, because that's what love does. It extends grace. It gives second chances. It doesn't manipulate or control or tear down. He leaned forward. You tried to destroy Simbi because you were afraid of losing me, afraid of change, afraid that if I loved someone you didn't approve of, it meant I didn't love you. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, his mother snapped. I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth you've been running from since father died. You turned me into a replacement for him, made me responsible for carrying on his legacy, maintaining his standards, living his life instead of my own, and I let you. Because I was afraid too, afraid that if I disappointed you, I'd lose you, like I lost him. His mother's composure cracked slightly. Your father would be ashamed of what you did. Jinwoo's voice was firm, but not cruel. He built Hanjin on innovation and merit. You nearly destroyed an innocent woman's career because of prejudice. That's not protecting his legacy. That's betraying it. How dare you? She whispered. No, mother. How dare you? He stood. Tomorrow, I'm holding a press conference. I'm telling the truth about Simbi, about our relationship, about what you and Yuna did, and I'm making it clear that if Hanjin Corporation is going to survive in the modern world, it needs to change. If you try to stop me, if you try to hurt Simbi again, I will resign. I will start my own company, and I will take every innovative mind at Hanjin with me. You wouldn't. Try me. He walked towards the door, then paused. I love you, mother. I always will. But I'm done choosing your comfort over doing what's right. If you want to be part of my life, you need to accept Simbi, not tolerate her, accept her, respect her, welcome her, because she's not going anywhere. He left without waiting for a response. The next day, the press conference room was packed. Journalists from every major Korean outlet, cameras everywhere. The board had tried to stop it, but Jinwoo had made it clear they could either support him or accept his resignation. Given his track record and the recent policy changes that were already improving company morale, they'd reluctantly agreed to let him speak. Simbi sat in the front row, flanked by Lee Minho and, surprisingly, his grandmother. The old woman had shown up unannounced that morning, taken one look at Simbi and said, I'm sitting with you. No one argues with grandmother. Jinwoo stepped up to the microphone. His hands weren't shaking. His voice was steady. For the first time in his life, he wasn't performing. He was just being honest. Good afternoon. My name is Han Jinwoo, CEO of Hanjin Corporation. I've called this press conference to address recent speculation about my personal life and to make several important announcements. The room went silent. First, I want to introduce you to someone. Miss Simbi Okafor. Would you please stand? Simbi stood, her head high despite every camera turning toward her. This is Simbi Okafor, our new Director of International Expansion. She's brilliant, innovative, and has already improved our international recruitment by 30% in just 8 months. She's also the woman I love. We are in a relationship. And before anyone asks, yes, she had to work twice as hard as anyone else to prove she deserved her position, because people assumed she was getting special treatment. She wasn't. If anything, I was harder on her than anyone else because I was afraid of appearing biased. Reporters started shouting questions, but Jinwoo held up a hand. I'm not finished. Several weeks ago, there was an incident involving fabricated evidence meant to damage Miss Okafor's reputation. That evidence was created by a former employee in collaboration with a member of Hanjin's board. Both have been dealt with according to company policy and, in one case, legal action. But I take responsibility for allowing a culture where such behaviour was possible. He paused, looking directly at the cameras. I also want to address something personal. My mother, Mrs. Han Soo-jin, used her position to try to end my relationship with Miss Okafor. She did this out of fear, not malice, but the impact was the same. Simbi suffered professionally and personally because of decisions made by people who should have known better, including me. A murmur went through the crowd. I made mistakes. I let fear control my decisions. I prioritized my mother's approval over defending the woman I love. I told Simbi to leave rather than fighting for our relationship, and I'm here today to say publicly what I should have said privately weeks ago. I was wrong, completely, utterly wrong, and I'm sorry. He looked at Simbi. Her eyes were glistening. Simbi Okafor came to Korea with nothing but her skills and her dreams. She earned every opportunity she received. She handled discrimination and scrutiny with grace I don't possess, and she taught me that real strength isn't about never showing weakness. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's terrifying. The room was completely silent now. So here's what's going to happen. Hanjin Corporation is implementing new policies to prevent what happened to Simbi from happening to anyone else. We're creating an independent oversight committee for workplace relationships. We're funding scholarships for international talent. And we're making it clear that discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated. He took a breath. As for my mother, she will be taking a leave of absence from the board, not as punishment, but because she needs time to decide if she can support these changes, and if she can accept that her son is in love with a brilliant woman from Nigeria, and that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to celebrate. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Han, what if your mother doesn't accept your relationship? Then she'll miss out on knowing one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. But that's her choice to make. I've made mine. Another reporter. And Miss Okafor, how do you respond to critics who say you're only successful because of your relationship with the CEO? Jinwoo opened his mouth to respond, but Simbi stood. May I? He nodded, stepping aside. Simbi approached the microphone. My name is Simbi Okafor. I'm 29 years old. I have a master's degree in computer engineering. I've increased international contracts at Hanjin by 30%. I've streamlined our development process and saved the company approximately 50 million won in the past quarter alone. Her voice was steady. Powerful. I fell in love with Director Han. Yes. But that love didn't build my skills. It didn't earn my degrees. It didn't create my work ethic. I did that. So, to critics who question my success, I say this: review my performance metrics, examine my project outcomes, speak to my team members, and then try to tell me I didn't earn my place. The room erupted in questions, but Simbi wasn't finished. As for Director Han's mother, I don't hate her. I understand her fear. Change is scary. Watching your child choose a path you didn't expect is scary. But fear doesn't justify cruelty, and I hope, in time, Mrs. Han will realize that I'm not taking her son away. I'm just asking to stand beside him. She looked at Jinwoo. And he's asked to stand beside me. That's what partnership looks like. Equal, supportive, brave. She stepped back from the microphone, and the room exploded with questions. But Jinwoo only had eyes for Simbi. She just defended herself, defended them, with a strength that made him fall in love with her all over again. That evening, after the press conference, after the calls and the messages and the chaos, they stood together in his apartment, looking out at Seoul's lights. That was terrifying, Simbi said. You were magnificent, he replied. She turned to face him. So, what happens now? Now we deal with the fallout. My mother is probably furious. The board is nervous. The media will tear us apart and defend us in equal measure. He took her hands, but we do it together. No more secrets, no more running, no more letting fear win. She smiled, and it was the first real, unguarded smile he'd seen since their fight. Together. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of promise. And for the first time since this all began, Jinwoo felt like they might actually make it. But they'd both forgotten something important. His mother didn't just get angry, she got even. And what she was planning would test their relationship in ways neither of them expected. 3 days after the press conference, Simbi arrived at her office to find security waiting. Miss Okafor, the head of security, said, his face apologetic. I need you to come with me. There's been an incident. What kind of incident? He didn't answer, just led her to the executive floor where a crowd had gathered. Board members, HR representatives, and standing in the centre like a general surveying a battlefield, Jinwoo's mother. Simbi's stomach dropped. Mrs. Han, what's going on? Jinwoo's mother turned, and her expression was pure ice. What's going on is that I've been conducting my own investigation into you, into your background, into certain financial irregularities that have recently come to light. Simbi felt the blood drain from her face. What are you talking about? Mrs. Han pulled out a folder, distributing copies to the board members present. These are bank records showing deposits into Miss Okafor's account, large deposits from an account registered to a shell company. She paused for effect. A shell company that does business with 3 of Hanjin's main competitors. That's not possible, Simbi said, her voice shaking. I've never accepted money from anyone. I've never. The evidence suggests otherwise, Mr. Park said, looking at the documents with concern. Miss Okafor, these deposits total nearly 200 million won over the past 6 months. You need to explain this. I can't explain it, because it's not real. Simbi's mind raced. This is fabricated, just like the HR complaint, just like everything else she's done to destroy me. Mrs. Hun smiled coldly. I have bank statements, transaction records, even emails from your account discussing proprietary Hanjin information with outside parties. Are you suggesting I fabricated all of that? Yes, because that's exactly what you did with Yuna. You've done it before. You're doing it again. The difference, Mrs. Han said, walking closer, is that this time I have evidence that will hold up in court. I've already contacted the prosecutor's office. They're very interested in corporate espionage cases. Simbi felt the walls closing in. Where's Jinwoo? Does he know about this? My son is in an emergency board meeting, discussing whether to terminate your employment immediately or wait for the legal process to conclude. Mrs. Han's voice was pleasant, conversational, which made it all the more terrifying. I gave him a choice. You or his company, his legacy, everything his father built. Let's see what he chooses this time. You're lying, Simbi said, but her voice cracked. He wouldn't he? Mrs. Han tilted her head. He's already sacrificed so much for you. His relationship with his family, his reputation, the board's trust. How much more do you think he can lose before he realizes you're not worth it? Before Simbi could respond, Jinwoo's voice cut through the crowd. Mother, what the hell is this? He pushed through the gathered employees, his face dark with fury. What have you done? I've protected this company, Mrs. Han said calmly. Something you've been too blinded by infatuation to do properly. Jinwoo looked at the documents, his expression growing more horrified with each page. These are forgeries. Are they? Then explain the bank records. Explain the emails sent from her company account. Because you planted them, Jinwoo's voice rose. Just like you planted evidence before. Just like you've been sabotaging Simbi from the beginning. Prove it, his mother said simply. You have your press conference claiming I'm prejudiced and controlling. I have documented evidence of corporate espionage. Which story do you think the prosecutor will believe? Jinwoo looked at Simbi, and she saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Doubt. Just for a second, just a flicker. But it was there. He was wondering if maybe, possibly there was something he didn't know, and that flicker of doubt broke something inside her. "You believe her," Simbi said quietly. "Even after everything, some part of you is wondering if she might be right." "No, Simbi, I can see it in your face." She stepped back. "You stood up at that press conference, you said beautiful words, but when it really matters, when your mother puts your company on one side and me on the other, you hesitate. That's not fair." "Fair?" She laughed, but it was bitter. "Nothing about this has been fair. I came to this country with dreams. I worked harder than anyone. I earned everything I have, and your mother has spent months trying to destroy me because she can't stand that you love someone she didn't choose." Mrs. Han spoke up. "If you're innocent, then a proper investigation will clear you, unless you have something to hide." "I have nothing to hide," Simbi said, turning to face her. "But you and I both know that's not how this works. You've set this up so that even if I'm cleared, the suspicion remains, the whispers, the doubt. You're not trying to prove I'm guilty. You're trying to make sure that even if I stay, my life here is hell." "Then perhaps you should leave," Mrs. Han said softly. "Go back to Nigeria, back to your family. Save yourself this pain." The room went silent, everyone watching this battle between two women who both loved the same man in different ways. "No," Simbi said finally, "I'm not running. You want to destroy me? You're going to have to do it while looking me in the eye. I'll cooperate with your investigation. I'll prove every single allegation is false. And when I do, when I clear my name again, you're going to have to admit that your problem isn't my character or my qualifications. It's my skin colour, my nationality, the fact that I don't fit your narrow definition of who your son should love." Mrs. Han's expression remained impassive. "We'll see." Jinwoo stepped between them. "Mother, this ends now. I don't care what evidence you think you have. I know Simbi. She wouldn't—" "You don't know anything," Mrs. Han interrupted. "You think love makes you see clearly? It blinds you, makes you stupid. Your father loved me, and he died working himself to death to give us everything. Is that what you want? To sacrifice everything for someone who might not even deserve it? Simbi is nothing like— She's exactly like every other foreigner who sees Korea as an opportunity," Mrs. Han said, her composure finally cracking. "They come here, they take what they want, and they leave. Just like that woman your father mentored, the one who stole his research and sold it to competitors. Just like everyone who's ever used our family's generosity against us. And there it was, the real reason. Not prejudice for its own sake, but fear born from old wounds." Jinwoo's voice softened. "Mother, what happened with father's colleague? That wasn't Simbi's fault. How do you know? How can you be sure she's not doing the same thing? Because I trust her. You trusted me once too." Mrs. Han's eyes glistened. "And now you're choosing her over me, just like your father chose his work over his health, over his family." "I'm not father," Jinwoo said gently, "and Simbi isn't the woman who betrayed him. You can't punish her for someone else's sins." Mrs. Han looked at her son, and for the first time, Simbi saw genuine pain in the older woman's face. "If you choose her, if you continue this relationship while she's under investigation, the board will force you out. They've already told me. It's her or the company. Then I choose her," Jinwoo said without hesitation. The room gasped. Mrs. Han went pale. "You can't be serious. I've never been more serious." He looked at the board members. "Draft my resignation. Effective immediately. Lee Min-ho will serve as interim CEO until you find my replacement." "Jinwoo!" "No," Simbi said, grabbing his arm. "You can't do this. Not for me. I'm not doing it for you," he said, looking at her with such love it made her chest ache. "I'm doing it for us, because a company that would force me to choose between my career and the woman I love isn't a company I want to lead." He turned back to his mother. "I'm done, mother. Done playing by your rules. Done sacrificing my happiness for your approval. Done pretending that your fear gives you the right to hurt people I care about." Mrs. Han's composure finally shattered. "How can you do this to me after everything I've sacrificed, everything I've done to protect you? You haven't protected me. You've controlled me. There's a difference." He took Simbi's hand, "And I'm choosing freedom, even if it costs me everything." He walked toward the elevator, pulling Simbi with him. As the doors closed, she saw his mother standing there, surrounded by shocked board members, looking smaller somehow, older, defeated. The elevator descended in silence. "You shouldn't have done that," Simbi finally said. "I had to." "She'll never forgive you." Jinwoo leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly looking exhausted. "I know, but I can't live my life trying to earn forgiveness from someone who's determined to withhold it. What do we do now?" "Now?" He smiled weakly. "Now we clear your name. We expose whatever evidence my mother manufactured, and we figure out what comes next." The elevator reached the ground floor. They stepped out into the lobby, and immediately cameras flashed. News had already spread. Director Han resigns to support girlfriend accused of corporate espionage. The headlines were already writing themselves. As they pushed through the reporters, Simbi's phone rang. Her mother. Ni M. Her mother's voice was gentle. "I saw the news. Are you okay?" "No, Mama. I'm not okay. I'm scared and angry, and I don't know how to fix this." "Then come home. Come home and let us help you." Simbi looked at Jinwoo, who nodded. "Okay. We're coming." "We?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. "He really chose you over everything." "He did." "Then bring him. If he's willing to sacrifice that much, he deserves to know what it means to be truly part of a family, the kind that fights for each other, always." As they got in the car, as they drove away from Hanjin Corporation for what might be the last time, Simbi realized something. Jinwoo's mother had tried to destroy her, had succeeded in taking away her job, her reputation, everything she'd built. But she hadn't broken them. If anything, she'd made them stronger. But the war wasn't over, because Mrs. Han wasn't done, not by a long shot. The investigation took 2 weeks, 2 weeks of lawyers, depositions, forensic accountants going through every transaction Simbi had ever made. 2 weeks of news coverage that painted her as either a victim of discrimination or a criminal mastermind, depending on which channel you watched. 2 weeks of Jinwoo standing beside her at every meeting, every interview, every moment when she felt like giving up. His mother didn't appear once, but her presence was felt everywhere. In the leaked documents to the press, in the anonymous tips to investigators, in the pressure on witnesses to remember things that never happened. Finally, the forensic team found it. The proof they needed. The shell company that had supposedly paid Simbi didn't exist. The bank records were expertly forged, but the account numbers didn't match any real accounts. The emails had been sent using a sophisticated spoofing system that made them appear to come from Simbi's address, but the IP logs showed they originated from a computer in Mrs. Han's home office. She'd done it all herself, every piece of evidence, every document, all of it fabricated. When the police arrived at Mrs. Han's penthouse, they found her sitting calmly in her living room, as if she'd been waiting for them. At the station, Jinwoo sat across from his mother in the interrogation room. The police had allowed him 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to talk to her before they processed her arrest for fraud, forgery, and making false accusations to law enforcement. "Why?" Jinwoo asked. His voice was hoarse from exhaustion and grief. "Why would you go this far?" Mrs. Han looked at her son, and her mask finally crumbled completely. "Because I'm losing you, just like I lost your father. I watch you with her, and you have that same look he had. That look that says you'd sacrifice everything, your health, your career, your life. And I can't watch that happen again. So you tried to frame an innocent woman, you broke laws, destroyed your own reputation. I thought if I could just make you see. Mrs. Han's voice broke. If I could show you that she wasn't worth it, that no one is worth losing yourself, you'd wake up. You'd choose yourself, choose to live instead of burning yourself out for love. Jinwoo leaned forward. Mother, Simbi isn't killing me. You are. This constant battle, this war you've waged, watching you destroy yourself trying to control me, that's what's breaking my heart. I was protecting you. No, you were protecting yourself from the fear of being alone, from having to face that father's death wasn't about love killing him. It was about him not knowing how to balance work and life, about him not asking for help, about all of us not seeing how much he was struggling until it was too late. Mrs. Han's face crumpled. Every day since he died, I've been terrified that I'd lose you too, that I'd wake up and you'd be gone. And when you met that girl, when I saw how you looked at her, I saw your father. I saw history repeating, and I panicked, so you tried to drive her away. I tried to save you. You almost lost me instead, Jinwoo said quietly. If you'd succeeded in destroying Simbi, if you'd managed to drive her out of my life, I would have forgiven you eventually, but I would never have trusted you again, never have let you close. You would have saved me from love, only to lose me to resentment. Mrs. Han wiped tears from her face, her makeup smearing. What have I done? You've broken laws, hurt innocent people, and destroyed the relationship you were trying to preserve. Jinwoo stood. The prosecutor is offering a deal. If you admit to everything, make a public apology, and commit to therapy, they'll reduce charges to misdemeanor level, probation instead of jail time. And if I refuse, then you'll go to trial. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You'll lose, and you'll go to prison. Is that really what you want? What I want is my son back. Then stop fighting the woman who makes him happy, because Mother, I love you. I always will, but I love her too, and I can't keep choosing between you. He walked to the door, then paused. The lawyer will be here in an hour. Think about what I said. 3 days later, Mrs. Han held her own press conference. It was nothing like Jinwoo's. There were no cameras from major outlets, no packed room, just a small gathering of journalists who specialized in business news and a written statement that her lawyer read while she stood beside him, looking smaller than Jinwoo had ever seen her. The statement admitted to everything, the fabricated evidence, the harassment, the coordination with Yuna. It apologized to Simbi, to Hanjin Corporation, to everyone who had been affected by her actions. But what people would remember most was the end, when Mrs. Han took the microphone herself. I did these things because I was afraid, she said, her voice shaking, afraid of losing my son the way I lost my husband, afraid of change, afraid that if I wasn't in control, everything would fall apart. She looked directly at the camera. Simbi Okafor, if you're watching, I am deeply sorry. You came to our country with dreams and worked hard to achieve them. And I tried to destroy you not because of who you are, but because of my own fear and prejudice. You deserved better. My son deserved better. And I hope someday and somehow I can earn your forgiveness. But I understand if that day never comes. Does she deserve forgiveness? Comment, forgive, or no mercy. This one's controversial, and I want to see you battle it out below. Back to the courtroom, she stepped back from the microphone and her lawyer led her away. The charges would be formally filed tomorrow, the sentencing hearing in 3 weeks. Simbi watched the press conference from Jinwoo's apartment. When it ended, she turned off the TV and sat in silence. Jinwoo came out from the kitchen with tea. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that I should feel vindicated, that I should feel satisfied seeing her admitting she was wrong. She took the teacup. But I just feel sad. Why? Because she's someone's mother. Your mother. And she's destroyed her own life because she couldn't let go of fear. Simbi looked at Jinwoo. Do you hate her? No. He sat beside her. I'm angry, disappointed, hurt. But I don't hate her. I just feel like I'm watching someone I love self-destruct and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Maybe there is something. What? We could go see her. Before the hearing. Talk to her. Really talk. Not through lawyers or police. Jinwoo looked at her like she was crazy. After everything she's done to you, you want to go see her. I don't want you to lose your mother, Simbi said softly. And I don't want to be the reason your family falls apart. She set down her tea. Your grandmother told me something when we were in Nigeria. She said healing and forgiveness are the hardest parts. Harder than fighting, harder than standing up for yourself. But they're also the most important. You think my mother deserves forgiveness? I think she's a broken person who did terrible things. But I also think that hurt people. And if someone doesn't break that cycle, it just continues. Simbi took his hand. I'm not saying I forgive her yet. I'm not saying everything's suddenly okay. But I am saying that maybe, if we're brave enough, we can start the conversation. Jinwoo looked at their joined hands. You're a better person than I am. No, I'm just someone who knows what it's like to be judged for things I can't control. And I refuse to become the person who judges others for their worst moments. The next day, they went to see Mrs. Han at her penthouse. She answered the door herself. No staff, no armour of wealth and power. Just a woman in simple clothes with exhaustion written on her face. You came, she said, surprise and hope in her voice. Can we come in? Simbi asked. Mrs. Han stepped aside, gesturing to the living room. It looked different somehow, less pristine, more lived in, like someone had finally stopped performing perfection and just started existing. They sat. The silence stretched. Finally, Mrs. Han spoke. I don't expect you to forgive me, either of you. What I did was unforgivable. You're right, Simbi said. It was unforgivable. You tried to destroy my life, my career, my reputation. You fabricated evidence and committed crimes, all because you couldn't accept that your son loves me. Mrs. Han flinched but nodded. I know, but, Simbi continued, I'm not here to punish you more. You're doing that to yourself. I'm here because Jinwoo loves you, and I love Jinwoo, and I refuse to build my happiness on the ashes of his relationship with his mother. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to understand why you hate me so much, what I represent that terrifies you, because until we understand that, we can't move forward. Mrs. Han was quiet for a long time. Then she started talking about Jinwoo's father, about the woman he'd mentored, a foreign researcher who'd stolen years of his work and sold it to competitors, about how that betrayal had devastated him, how he'd worked himself literally to death trying to prove he was still valuable, still worthy. When he died, I was so angry, Mrs. Han said. Angry at him for leaving, angry at that woman for betraying him, angry at myself for not seeing how much he was suffering. She looked at Simbi, and when you came along, when I saw how Jinwoo looked at you, all I could see was history repeating. Another foreigner, another brilliant woman who my family would invest in, another potential betrayal. I'm not her, Simbi said firmly. I would never betray Jinwoo. I love him. I know that now. Mrs. Han wiped her eyes, or at least I'm starting to believe it. But fear doesn't listen to logic. It just screams and screams until you do something terrible. So what now? Jinwoo asked. Where do we go from here? Mrs. Han looked at her son, then at Simbi. I don't know. I've destroyed so much. I don't know if it can be fixed. It can't be fixed, Simbi said. Not back to how it was, but maybe it can be built into something new, something better. If you're willing to actually try, not just say the right words, but do the hard work of changing, I'll do anything. Then start by answering one question honestly. Simbi leaned forward. If I were Korean, from a wealthy family, with all the right connections, would you have welcomed me, or would you have found other reasons to push me away? Mrs. Han opened her mouth, then closed it. The honest answer is probably still no. Not because of who you are, but because I don't want to share Jinwoo with anyone. I've been alone since my husband died. Jinwoo is all I have, and the thought of him building a life that doesn't centre around me terrifies me. At least that's honest, Simbi said. But, Mrs. Han continued, I'm starting to realise that holding on so tight is just pushing him away, that the only way to keep him in my life is to let him live his life. She looked at Simbi with something that might have been respect. You make him happy, really happy, in a way I never could. And maybe that should be enough. It's a start, Jinwoo said quietly. They talked for another hour. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was the beginning of something. A fragile understanding that maybe with time and effort they could build a bridge over the chasm that had opened between them. As they left, Mrs. Han called out to Simbi. Wait. Simbi turned. Thank you, Mrs. Han said, for not giving up on him, for being strong enough to fight for your relationship even when I tried to destroy it. You're the kind of woman who deserves my son. I'm just sorry it took me so long to see it. Simbi nodded. And I'm sorry you felt so afraid. I hope someday you'll trust that I'm not going to hurt him, that I'm not the woman who betrayed your husband, that I'm just Simbi trying to build a life with the man I love. As they drove away, Jinwoo took her hand. You didn't have to do that. Go see her, try to understand. Yes, I did, because you love her. And I love you, and love means being brave enough to do hard things. He brought her hand to his lips. What did I do to deserve you? You showed up at an airport. You followed me across the world. You chose me when it cost you everything. Simbi smiled. You earned me, Jinwoo. Now let's go see what comes next. The sentencing hearing was in 1 week. Mrs. Han's lawyer was confident they'd get probation, community service, maybe a fine, but the damage to her reputation was permanent. Board positions rescinded, social invitations withdrawn, friends who'd been loyal for decades suddenly unavailable. Jinwoo visited her every day. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just sat in silence. Slowly, painfully, they were learning how to be in each other's presence without performing, without roles of controlling mother and dutiful son. Just two people who loved each other and were trying to figure out how. On the 4th day, his grandmother showed up. She let herself in with her own key, took one look at her daughter-in-law sitting in the pristine living room looking lost, and shook her head. Enough, the old woman said in Korean, this wallowing, this self-pity. Get up, mother, Mrs. Han started, but grandmother held up a hand. I raised you better than this. Yes, you made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But now you sit here feeling sorry for yourself instead of fixing what you broke. She settled into a chair across from her daughter-in-law. Do you know why I gave Simbi my bracelet? Because you wanted to hurt me, because she reminds me of me. Grandmother's voice softened. When I married your father-in-law's father, my family was furious. He was from a different province, different dialect. They said it wouldn't work, that I should marry someone from our village who understood our ways. She smiled at the memory. I married him anyway. And for the first 5 years, his mother made my life hell. Criticised everything I did, told him I wasn't good enough, tried to drive us apart. Mrs. Han looked up. I never knew that, because by the time you joined the family, we'd made peace. But it took years. Years of me proving myself. Years of her slowly realising that different didn't mean wrong. Grandmother leaned forward. You are making the same mistake she did, punishing Simbi for not being what you expected instead of seeing what she actually is. What is she? She's the woman who makes your son laugh, who challenges him to be better, who stood in a boardroom and defended herself with such strength that even the men who doubted her had to respect her. Grandmother's eyes were fierce. She's the woman who, after everything you did to her, came to this apartment and tried to understand why you were so afraid. What kind of person does that? Mrs. Han said nothing. A strong one. A forgiving one. The kind of woman any mother should be proud to have join her family. Grandmother stood. So stop feeling sorry for yourself and start showing her she was right to give you another chance. After Grandmother left, Mrs. Han sat alone for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and made a call. The next morning, Simbi was surprised to receive an email from Mrs. Han. Not a long email, just a simple request. Would you meet me for lunch? Just us. No lawyers, no Jinwoo, just two women trying to understand each other. Simbi stared at the email for a full minute before forwarding it to Jinwoo with the question, "Is this a trap?" His response came immediately. "I don't think so, but I'll be nearby if you need me." They met at a small restaurant. Nothing fancy, nothing designed to impress. Mrs. Han was already there when Simbi arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking nervous in a way Simbi had never seen her. "Thank you for coming," Mrs. Han said as Simbi sat down. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." Simbi ordered tea from the server, but I'm curious. What could you possibly have to say to me that hasn't already been said? I want to tell you about Jinwoo's father, and for the next hour, over food that neither of them really ate, Mrs. Han told stories about meeting her husband in college, about his dreams of building something that mattered, about the woman he'd mentored who became like a daughter to them, who attended family dinners and holidays, about the betrayal that had devastated him when she stole his research and disappeared. He changed after that, Mrs. Han said, became suspicious, worked constantly to prove his value, and I failed him. I didn't see how much pain he was in, didn't understand that he was literally working himself to death to restore his sense of worth. She looked at Simbi with red-rimmed eyes. When he died, I promised myself I would protect Jinwoo from that same pain, that I would never let anyone get close enough to betray him like that. But in trying to protect him, I became the thing I was trying to protect him from. I became the person who hurt him most. Simbi listened, her own eyes watering. I see that now, Mrs. Han continued, and I'm so sorry. Sorry for projecting my trauma onto you. Sorry for assuming you were like the woman who destroyed my husband. Sorry for trying to control Jinwoo's life because I was too afraid to deal with my own grief. The restaurant buzzed with other diners' conversations, but at their table, there was only heavy silence. I don't know if I can forgive you, Simbi said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. You knew exactly how to hurt me, and you did it anyway. I know. Mrs. Han's voice was small, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I am asking for a chance, not to go back to how things were, but to try to build something new, something where we can at least be in the same room without hatred. Why? Why does it matter to you now? Because Mrs. Han looked directly at her. Jinwoo is going to marry you. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but eventually. I can see it in how he looks at you, and I have a choice. I can either accept that and try to be part of your lives, or I can stay angry and lose him completely. She paused. I've already lost so much. I don't want to lose him too. Simbi sat back, processing. You're saying you want to be part of our lives. After everything, I'm saying I want to try, if you'll let me. Mrs. Han pulled out an envelope. This is a letter for Jinwoo, but I wanted you to read it first. It's everything I should have said months ago. about my fear, my grief, my mistakes, and my commitment to doing better. Simbi took the envelope but didn't open it. What if I say no? What if I tell Jinwoo that I can't have you in our lives? Then I'll respect that. Mrs. Han's voice was steady. Because you deserve to feel safe. And if my presence makes you feel unsafe, then I'll stay away, even if it breaks my heart. It was the first completely selfless thing Simbi had heard her say. She opened the envelope and read. The letter was raw, honest, painful. It detailed Mrs. Han's spiral of grief and fear, her therapy sessions where she was finally confronting her trauma, her realization that control had been her way of coping with a world that felt chaotic and dangerous after losing her husband. The last paragraph made Simbi's throat tight. Jinwoo deserves happiness, and Simbi, you make him happier than I've seen him since before his father died. I was so focused on protecting him from potential pain that I couldn't see I was causing him actual pain. You were brave enough to fight for him when I was trying to drive you away. You were strong enough to stand up to me when I had all the power. And you were gracious enough to try to understand me even after I tried to destroy you. If Jinwoo has chosen you, then he has chosen well. Better than I ever could have chosen for him. I hope someday I can be worthy of being part of the family you're building together. Simbi folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. I need to think about this, about whether I can trust you enough to let you back into our lives. I understand. But, Simbi continued, I appreciate you being honest, finally, about the fear, about the grief, about why you did what you did. It doesn't excuse it, but it helps me understand. That's all I can ask for. They stood to leave, and at the door, Mrs. Han turned back. Simbi? Yes. You're stronger than I ever was. I want you to know that. When I was your age, when people criticised me or questioned me, I broke. I let their opinions shape me, but you stand firm. You know who you are. And that's admirable. It was the first real compliment Mrs. Han had ever given her. As Simbi walked away from the restaurant, her phone buzzed. Jinwoo, how did it go? She replied, progress. Slow, painful progress. Meet me at home. We need to talk about what comes next. Because she'd made a decision, one that would either heal this fractured family or break it beyond repair. But it was a risk she was willing to take. For Jinwoo, for their future. And maybe, just maybe, for the broken woman who was finally starting to see clearly. The sentencing hearing arrived with all the weight of a reckoning. The courtroom was packed with media, curious onlookers, and a few board members from Hanjin who'd come to witness the fall of the woman who'd once commanded such respect and fear. Jinwoo sat in the front row. Beside him, to everyone's shock, was Simbi, and beside Simbi, holding her hand, was grandmother. When Mrs. Han entered, escorted by her lawyer, she saw them, all 3 generations, sitting together, supporting her despite everything. Her eyes filled with tears. The prosecutor presented the case, the evidence of fraud, forgery, false accusations. It was damning, thorough, undeniable. Mrs. Han's lawyer didn't contest any of it. They'd already worked out a plea agreement. But before the judge could pronounce sentence, Simbi stood. Your Honour, may I speak? The judge looked surprised. Miss Okafor, you're the victim in this case. You have the right to make a statement, but you don't have to. I know, but I want to. The judge nodded. Proceed. Simbi walked to the front of the courtroom. She didn't look at Mrs. Han. She looked at the judge. Your Honour. What Mrs. Han did to me was terrible. She tried to destroy my career, my reputation, my life in this country. She used her power and resources to fabricate evidence and make me look like a criminal. If she had succeeded, I would have lost everything I'd worked for. The courtroom was silent. But, Simbi continued, I've spent the past few weeks trying to understand why, not to excuse it, but to understand it. And what I've learned is that Mrs. Han is a woman who's been carrying grief and trauma for years, who watched her husband work himself to death after being betrayed, who became so terrified of history repeating itself that she became the villain in her own son's story. She finally looked at Mrs. Han. She made terrible choices, but they came from a place of love twisted by fear, and while that doesn't excuse what she did, it does explain it. She paused. Your Honour, I'm not asking for leniency because I've forgiven her. I haven't, not completely. But I am asking for a sentence that focuses on rehabilitation rather than punishment, therapy, community service, mandated counselling to address the trauma that led to this behaviour, because destroying her life won't undo what she did to me. It'll just create more pain. The prosecutor started to object, but the judge held up a hand. Miss Okafor, you understand that what you're asking for could result in Mrs. Han avoiding significant prison time? I understand, and I'm okay with that, because I don't want revenge. I want healing. For her, for Jinwoo, for all of us. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Mrs. Han. Stand, please. Mrs. Han stood, her lawyer beside her, both looking shocked by what Simbi had just done. Mrs. Han, the judge said, you've heard from the woman you tried to destroy. She's shown you more grace than you deserved, more compassion than you showed her. I hope you understand the gift you've just been given. I do, Your Honour, Mrs. Han whispered. Then here is my ruling. You will serve 2 years of probation. You will complete 500 hours of community service, specifically working with immigrant communities to help others who face discrimination. You will attend weekly therapy sessions, and you will participate in restorative justice sessions with Miss Okafor if she's willing. If you violate any of these terms, you will serve the full sentence of 3 years in prison. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honour. Thank you. As they left the courtroom, Mrs. Han approached Simbi, Jinwoo, and grandmother. Why? She asked Simbi. After everything I did, why would you speak for me? Because someone had to break the cycle, Simbi said. And it wasn't going to be you, not yet. You're still learning how. Mrs. Han's composure finally shattered completely. She sank onto a bench in the hallway and sobbed. Not dignified tears, not controlled emotion, full, body-shaking sobs of someone who'd been holding it together for too long. Grandmother sat beside her daughter-in-law and simply held her. Let it out, all of it. The grief, the fear, the shame. Let it go. Jinwoo looked at Simbi with wonder. You're incredible. You know that. I'm exhausted, she corrected. But yes, occasionally incredible. They stood there, the 4 of them, in a courthouse hallway, and something shifted, something fundamental. They weren't enemies anymore. They weren't even quite family yet. But they were something, the beginning of something that might, with time and effort, become whole. Over the next 3 months, Mrs. Han kept her word. She attended therapy. She showed up for her community service, working at an immigrant resource centre, helping others navigate the systems she'd once used as weapons. And she attended the restorative justice sessions with Simbi. Those sessions were hard, brutal even. They forced both women to be completely honest, to say things that hurt, to hear things that were harder. But slowly, something remarkable happened. They started to understand each other. Mrs. Han learned about Simbi's childhood, about her father's death, about the pressure she'd felt to succeed, to prove that leaving home was worth it, about the loneliness of being the only person who looked like her in every room she entered. Simbi learned about Mrs. Han's arranged marriage that became love, about the early years of struggling to build Hanjin, about the joy of having Jinwoo and the terror of raising him alone after his father died, about the weight of expectation that came with being a widow in a traditional society. "You and I," Simbi said in one session, "we're more alike than either of us wanted to admit." "How so?" "We both know what it's like to feel like we don't quite fit, to have to work twice as hard to prove we belong, to be judged for things we can't control." Simbi looked at her. "You judged me for my race and my nationality, but society judged you for being a widow, for running a company as a woman, for daring to have opinions. We were both fighting to be seen as valuable." Mrs. Han was quiet for a long moment. "I never thought of it that way. Maybe that's why you hurt me so much, because somewhere deep down, you saw yourself in me, and it scared you." By month 4, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Han asked Simbi to have coffee, not as part of therapy, not with lawyers, just 2 women who were trying to figure out how to exist in the same orbit. They met at a small cafe, and this time the conversation was different, lighter. They talked about Jinwoo's childhood, about Simbi's work. She'd been reinstated at Hanjin with a formal apology and significant promotion. About nothing and everything. When they were leaving, Mrs. Han hesitated. "Simbi, there's something I want to show you, if you're willing." "Show me." "My husband's research. The work that was stolen. I've never shown anyone except Jinwoo, but I think you should see it." To understand why I was so afraid, they went to Mrs. Han's penthouse, in her late husband's study, preserved exactly as he'd left it. Mrs. Han pulled out journals filled with complex equations and notes. "He was brilliant," Mrs. Han said, running her fingers over his handwriting, "and he trusted the wrong person. Someone who saw opportunity instead of friendship. Someone who took years of his life's work and sold it without a second thought." Simbi looked at the journals, understanding flooding through her. She was from Nigeria, the researcher who betrayed him. Mrs. Han nodded. "Same country, similar age to what you were when you arrived. When I saw you with Jinwoo, all I could see was her. All I could feel was the terror that history was repeating. But I'm not her. I know that now." Mrs. Han closed the journal carefully. "I'm so sorry it took me so long to see you as yourself, instead of as a ghost from my past." They stood in that study, surrounded by the work of a dead man, and something finally healed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Enough for Mrs. Han to say, "I want to be better, for Jinwoo, for you, for myself," and enough for Simbi to say, "Then let's help each other." 6 months after the sentencing hearing, Hanjin Corporation held its annual gala, the same event where Simbi had once silenced a room with her Korean speech. But this year, everything was different. Jinwoo had been reinstated as CEO after the board realized that losing him meant losing their most innovative minds. Simbi had been promoted to Vice President of International Operations, reporting directly to the board, not to Jinwoo, ensuring complete independence. And Mrs. Han, to everyone's shock, was attending, not as a board member, not as a power player, just as the CEO's mother, nothing more. Simbi stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the dress she'd chosen for tonight. It was bold, vibrant, unapologetically her. No more trying to blend in, no more shrinking herself to make others comfortable. A knock at her door. Jinwoo stood there in a tuxedo, and her breath caught the way it always did when she saw him. "Ready?" he asked, almost. She picked up a small box from her dresser. "I have something for you first. Simbi, you didn't have to. Just open it." Inside was a simple silver band. Engraved on the inside in Korean and English were the words, "You fought for me." Jinwoo's eyes filled with tears. "Is this?" "It's a promise ring. Not an engagement ring, not yet. But a promise that we're in this together, that we fought through hell and came out stronger." She slipped it onto his finger. "That I love you. All of you. Even the parts you tried to hide." He pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and gratitude and relief of someone who'd almost lost everything and found it again. They arrived at the gala together, hand in hand, and this time there were no whispers, no questioning looks, just acknowledgement, respect, and from some, genuine warmth. Simbi's speech that night wasn't about defending herself. It was about the future, about the international partnerships she'd been building, about the diversity initiatives that were already showing results, about making Hanjin a place where talent mattered more than connections. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, but the moment that mattered most came later, during dinner. Mrs. Han approached their table, and the conversation around them hushed. "May I sit?" she asked. Simbi looked at Jinwoo, who nodded. She gestured to an empty chair. "Please." Mrs. Han sat, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then she pulled out a small wrapped box, sliding it across the table to Simbi. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was a bracelet. Not jade this time, but silver, with delicate charms. A small house representing family, a book for education, a plane for dreams, and in the centre, 2 interlocking circles. "It's beautiful," Simbi said, her voice catching. "I had it made. Each charm represents something about you, your strength, your intelligence, your courage, your connection to Jinwoo." Mrs. Han's voice was steady but emotional. "The old bracelet, the jade one from my mother-in-law, that was about tradition, about passing down legacy. But this one, this is about creating something new, about honouring who you actually are, not who I thought you should be." Simbi's eyes filled with tears. "I know I can never undo the pain I caused," Mrs. Han continued. "I know that saying sorry isn't enough, but I want you to know that I see you now, really see you, and I'm grateful. Grateful that you didn't give up on Jinwoo. Grateful that you didn't give up on the possibility that even someone like me could change. Grateful that you taught me what real strength looks like. If this moment got you emotional, drop your reactions. And what do you have to say to Simbi for being the ultimate queen? Now for the ending you've been waiting for." "Thank you," Simbi whispered. "This means more than you know." Mrs. Han stood, but before she could leave, Simbi caught her hand. "Stay. Have dinner with us, please." Mrs. Han's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." And so Mrs. Han sat, and they had dinner together. The 3 of them, laughing and talking and slowly becoming what they'd never been before. Family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Later that evening, as the gala wound down, Jinwoo pulled Simbi onto the dance floor. "Dance with me," he said, "like we did at your cousin's wedding, like we're the only 2 people in the world." They swayed together to music that was too formal, too structured, but they made it their own. And as they danced, Jinwoo whispered in her ear, "I was thinking about something." "What?" "What you said, about the promise ring being not yet." She pulled back to look at him. "Jinwoo, I'm not asking tonight, not here, but soon." He smiled. "I want to marry you, Simbi Okafor. I want to build a life with you. I want children who are as stubborn as you and as foolish as me. I want to grow old together, arguing about whose turn it is to cook and teaching our grandchildren about the time we fought the world to be together." She was crying now, not caring that her makeup was running. "Yes, I didn't ask yet. I don't care. Yes. Whenever you ask, the answer is yes." He kissed her there on the dance floor, in front of everyone who'd doubted them, everyone who'd tried to tear them apart, everyone who'd finally learned to accept them. When they broke apart, Simbi saw Mrs. Han standing at the edge of the crowd, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling, really smiling. And when their eyes met, she mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Simbi nodded. "You're welcome." because she understood now. This wasn't just about her and Jinwoo, it was about breaking cycles, about proving that love could win even when everything was stacked against it, about showing that forgiveness was possible even for the deepest wounds. 3 months later, Jinwoo proposed, officially, not at a gala, not in front of cameras, but on the rooftop where his grandmother had first told him that Simbi was special, where he'd fallen in love with her all over again every time they sat under the stars. He got down on one knee, and this time there was a ring, a diamond set in a band that incorporated both Korean and Nigerian design elements. Simbi Okafor, he said, "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of you?" She pulled him up, laughing through tears. "You already proved that. But yes, 1,000 times yes." The wedding was 6 months later, a beautiful blend of Korean and Nigerian traditions. Simbi's family flew in from Lagos, filling the venue with music and laughter and life. Mrs. Han, who'd spent months learning about Igbo culture, gave a speech that brought everyone to tears. "When I first met Simbi," she said, "I saw a threat, someone who would take my son away, someone I didn't understand." She paused. "But my son taught me something. He taught me that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Simbi didn't take him from me, she gave him the courage to be fully himself. And in doing so, she gave me my son back. She gave me a chance to become the person I should have been all along." She looked at Simbi with genuine love. "Welcome to our family, daughter. We are better because you're here." Simbi and Jinwoo danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by everyone who mattered. Minji and Lee Minho, who'd been quietly dating for months. Chidi, who'd grudgingly admitted that maybe the Korean CEO was good enough for his sister. Grandmother, who'd been right all along. And Mrs. Han, who'd travelled further than anyone to get to this moment. As the night wound down, as guests departed and the venue emptied, Simbi and Jinwoo stood alone on the balcony, looking out at Seoul's lights. "We made it," she said. "We did." He pulled her close. "Through everything. We made it. So what happens now? Now?" He kissed her forehead. "Now we live. We build our careers. We travel. We fight sometimes and make up. We create a family that breaks every rule about how families are supposed to look. We prove that love is worth fighting for, but that the best battles end in peace, not victory. I love you," she said. "I love you more. Not possible. Want to bet?" They stood there, playfully arguing, wrapped in each other's arms, and anyone watching would have seen what they'd become. Not a CEO and his employee, not a Korean man and an African woman, not a story about overcoming prejudice, though it was that too. They were just two people who'd fought for love and won. Not because it was easy, but because they refused to give up. Not because they were perfect, but because they were perfect for each other. And that, in the end, was the only thing that mattered. The city lights twinkled below them like promises. Promises of tomorrow, promises of challenges they'd face together, promises of a love that had been tested and proven true. Simbi rested her head on Jinwoo's shoulder, touching the silver bracelet Mrs. Han had given her, now worn alongside her wedding ring. "Are you happy?" he asked. She smiled. That brilliant smile that had first captured his heart in a glass office what felt like a lifetime ago. "I'm home," she said, finally, completely home, and in the city that had once felt impossible, in the country that had tested every part of her, in the arms of the man who'd learned how to fight for her. Simbi Okafor had found exactly what she'd been searching for all along. Not just a dream achieved, not just a career built, not just love found, but a place where she belonged, completely, wholly, undeniably. Home. The end. Their story is complete. Simbi and Director Han's journey from love at first sight, through betrayal and doubt, across continents, and finally to healing and forever. Comment Simbi1 if this story hit different. Which part destroyed you emotionally? Tell me below. Subscribe for more stories like this. Thank you for being here.